So welcome, everybody. This is kind of an American's guide to New Japan Pro Wrestling and why New Japan is a much better product than WWE, AEW, and Impact, TNA, whatever they want to call it nowadays. So my name's Craig. I kind of started with New Japan thanks to Shinsuke Nakamura. On his second run, which most people know him from his WWE run, which is essentially his third big run. So I will turn it over to my co-hosts.
Oh, so I'm Keish. I got into New Japan like maybe 2 years ago with the new Bullet Club, with the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, when Cody jumped ship from WWE to New Japan and had that whole good, amazing run as a heel. That was like my coming into story, coming into New Japan for me, and that was a lot easier knowing that I know these faces. They speak English, so I don't have to wait for a translation. When I got into New Japan, it was really hard because they didn't really have the English commentary until previously, the last few years. So it's really nice to like listen to New Japan and seeing familiar faces. Those familiar faces, of course, are gone. So I grown to love Suzuki and his crew, and I love the whole pan craze, strong style he does. Every match is just like spine and muscle churning. It makes me cry every time because it seems like they're actually in pain, and it's not this kayfabe in pain. It's like oh, he needs to go see somebody like after this in pain.
Oh, and I'm Nelson. I'm really new. And I got into it January 2020, but I was familiar with New Japan because of all the old school wrestlers from the 80s and the 90s. They used to go wrestle in Japan when they weren't all locked down with Vince. So I had heard of Liger and a couple other ones. And when I went and saw the live show, it was January. January. And then Wrestle Kingdom, I was hooked. I'm like, that's the best thing. I had not watched wrestling in probably like 10 years. And going to that show made me realize that there's still good wrestling. And now when I watch WWE, it just ruined it because now you see good when I saw Okada, I'm like, okay, sorry. He's awesome.
And I'm kind of going to go through it point by point. So to me, it's no argument that New Japan has the best in-ring worker in Okada. I don't see, and you guys can argue with me, I don't really see anybody close. Probably the closest was Kenny Omega, who's taken a huge step back because he's essentially running a business with his friends now. And I don't know if you guys see anybody even close to him as an in-ring performer.
As an in-ring performer for Okada, it's true. I would say I've seen different Okada matches, and none of them are the same, but he does make the other guy look really good.
Yeah.
And to make that point, I've seen an Okada match versus Big Fale when Big Fale, now, so when he's super overweight, super big, and he made him look like Big Show 2000.
Right.
Right? Where he was tossing Stone Cold around in the blue cage that they don't use anymore. So yeah, there's not one person I can compare him to. Maybe Cody, because Cody knows how to build other stars in matches. We all know Brody Lee now in the Dark Order because of Cody. But I think if I was gonna put near, Cody's the next closest, not too close, but next closest in building up another star.
Okada's Hogan. He's got everything, charisma.
Right.
I saw him wrestle Jay White, and he made Jay White not look so bad.
Right.
For real.
To me, he's Shawn Michaels when he was in, because Okada's still 32, I think.
He's so young.
Look it up right now. He's 32.
Wow. He's a year older than me.
It's insane that he's that young, and he has the longest reigning IWGP Heavyweight Championship run. It's essentially Shawn Michaels in his prime if he never had the back issues and never had the drug issues, because he's never had a dip.
He makes it so easy when he's selling other people's moves. When you see a messed up move, and I was watching him against old Jay White because you're like, he's horrible.
Right.
Don't watch Jay White.
Jay White's hard
And
to watch.
I started watching old matches, and I'm like, Jay White is horrible. And I watch him with like Okada, and he rescues everybody. He makes everything look nice, and he sells everything like he doesn't go overboard. It just everything he does looks really sweet, like nice.
And it's cool for Okada because he knows how to tell a story without super dramatics, right? In America, we have the chair shots, the blood, all these big pop things that we're like, oh, yes, hit him with the steel chair, barbed wire, blood everywhere. But Okada's like, I've not seen a Okada match where anyone is bleeding. Mm-hmm. And I maybe got confused because when he was Red Okada for some time, I thought he was bleeding, but he wasn't. But yeah, like Okada knows how to build a match, and I've seen him even in like when he used to do the 4v4 matches, the tag matches, to build the G1 and all the other events. He would still show like, a little like 5-minute Okada match, then tag someone out, and it's amazing what Okada can do in the ring and with everyone, because from Big Fale to Minoru Suzuki to Naruto, it's like just he definitely knows what he's doing in there. Speed, fast, technical, even super strong style, and just tossing people around. When he faced, who did he face? He's in NWA now. Who's the last member in that? Not in AEW. The villain?
Marty Scurll.
Marty Scurll. That was an amazing match they had in San Francisco.
so to me, other than Jay White, Zack Sabre Jr. is the most boring wrestler in New Japan. Just he's so dull to me. Like, small joint manipulation is fine for a spot or two, but the fact that that's his whole match, and the only one of his matches that I can watch is his world title match with Okada. I think it was either New Year's Dash or Dominion a few years ago.
Was that in New York?
No, New York was Jay White.
Oh, sorry. See,
I was more interested in that just because I was hoping that Jay dropped the title. But kind of extending on that, I also would say that New Japan has the biggest face in the business with Tetsuya Naito now.
He's my favorite. I love Okada, but Naito's the one that when I saw him, his look and everything, I just liked all the LIJ stuff. It's really cool to me.
Right.
That caught my eye a lot.
It's weird saying face because he knows how to be heel in matches.
But it's almost so why I say that he's the biggest face in wrestling today is that it's very hard to have a naturally turned face nowadays.
Oh, that's true.
It's much more prominent because Austin and The Rock did it so well. But it's much easier to have these forced turns where you had to come and save somebody, and Naito did it in the most ridiculous storyline ever. And for those of you who didn't know it was that Naito was the world champion, dropped the belt, and then essentially became the Intercontinental Champion. And the storyline was just that he hated it. He would throw the belt in the trash can, just dump it, and just not care. And he was so good at it that he became essentially The Rock in pre-Corporation Rock, where it was everybody wanted to see him win, and New Japan did the opposite of what WWE did with Roman Reigns, where it was they forced you to want him to win, and then they didn't give it to him.
Yeah, New Japan knows how to dangle that carrot in front of the fans so well and keep you captivated and be like, he has to get it sooner or later, right?
Vince is like a rapey boyfriend. He just wants to force himself, like whatever. I don't care. I don't give a shit. I'm the Al Davis of wrestling, and whatever he wants, he gets. God, he did just force it on you, and you don't want to watch it. That's why the fans always booed him and stuff. Everything I've seen in New Japan is awesome, except Jay White.
Right, and we'll get to Jay in a little bit.
Yeah, we'll get to Jay.
This one is probably more controversial, but I personally would say that New Japan has the best heel in wrestling right now with Evil.
Oh yeah.
That's been kind of tampered a little bit because of Roman Reigns' recent run being amazing. But up until then, and again, for those of you who aren't watching, imagine if during the height of the DX Nation storyline, that if X-Pac, who's like the most solid number 2, does everything for you, basically beat the crap out of Triple H and took the world title and then defected to the Nation. It was shocking. It was something that they didn't advertise, you didn't see coming. It just happened.
Yeah, it was a very like solid moment too, because through that tournament when Evil was going through it, and it was Evil versus Sonata at the end, and well, at least on that end of the block, and Evil cheated to beat Sonata. We were like, okay, that's odd. Like last night, all right, he gets to face Naito for the title tomorrow. Then next thing you know, he cheats to beat Sonata. I'm like, okay. Then he turns on Naito. And I was freaking out. I was like screaming in 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, just like, what is going on? Because Evil was the right hand man. Like he was the only other member of LIJ where he had most of the titles until Shingo came along. Right. And at that point, Shingo had the never open weight title and the triple titles.
When he turned, Evil ending. You automatically disliked him. He was so good. Like when he went over there and messed up Naito, you're like, oh my god! Like, you automatically just switch to go, that what a bastard.
It's one of the things that it's like you don't get the big visual moments, the kind of big reactions. I think probably the last big reaction. I had it when Shinsuke won the Rumble, but that was for kind of personal reasons.
Yes,
I think the last like big reaction like that I had was probably when the Miz beat Orton by cashing in. Just because,
that's a good one.
Just because like the Ziggler cash in, I was never a Ziggler person. I understand the significance of that for people, but it's just, again, WWE has to manufacture it. They have to, essentially, if it's not a Money in the Bank moment, or if it wasn't related to Becky, like nothing is natural with them.
Even AEW doesn't force it like they do. Right. I mean, everyone's trashing Orange Cassidy, and the fans loved him just because of his dumb gimmick, and they went with it. I think that's like that's the way it should be, because WWE, I just don't like the way they force everyone on you. Like,
right, and I don't mean to completely trash WWE because again their women's division is
awesome.
Is extremely awesome, but that was made by Becky Lynch and Asuka, and now Io Shirai and Kairi, and it was made through their hard work. But their men's division, it's just essentially they don't know when to get out of their own way. The only thing that I would say that WWE has over New Japan is that it has the best character in wrestling. It has the Fiend still, but they don't know how to use him.
Yeah, I'm so surprised because they built him up, and then they just put him in these weird matches, and like you'll just see him in the middle of a card. Mm-hmm. You know, he's top of the card wrestler. I don't know what to.
And you tie him down with the person that I hate the most in wrestling, other than Jay White, with Alexa Bliss, so that automatically takes it. I know other people have different feelings about her, but
well, I have the same feeling as you for Alexa Bliss, but yeah, I totally understand that, because it's just really weird. Like, if we're gonna continue with Bray for quickly, it's just we had this great. It's been a year, almost a full year since he debuted as the Fiend. You know, SummerSlam and the great entrance. Then a month later, the Hell in a Cell. Then he loses the title to Goldberg, and it's like, what's happening? What's going on? Then he has this amazing Firefly Funhouse production match, and it was amazing, because I really hope we never see John Cena again, because it's the best way to ride out John Cena, right?
It was the best retirement match ever. It beats Ric Flair, to me.
Then Roman Reigns comes back. He comes back. We didn't know he's coming back as a heel, but he came back as a heel, quote unquote. Then they just dropped the title to him, and then now Bray is rumored to be traded, going to Raw now, and now Braun's on Raw, or he's on Raw Underground, whatever. And it's just like, well, so, you know, all aboard the Roman train again, you know? And I'm happy what it is now, but to think about, like, Bray had so many chances to be further past Undertaker at this point. if he beat Undertaker in Santa Clara, where I attended my first WrestleMania, I would have been so happy. But he didn't. If they allowed John Cena to turn just a little bit heel, I think it was New Orleans a year beforehand.
I think so.
They didn't do that either, and they had so many times that Bray could have been like the star, but not like John Cena, Roman Reigns, but just like Undertaker of the crew. Be like, he's always lurking and he's always a threat. And it's still amazing that to this day, he's still always lurking, he's still a threat. But even some people think like, well, if he can get a DQ get a DQ win in a Hell in a Cell match, what kind of stupid things will he get now?
I think that if someone should have beat Undertaker, it was Bray, not Brock.
There's only two people that I could ever see beating Taker, and it's the next generation guy. So it would be The Fiend, or it would be Balor.
Yep.
Those are the only two. Or give it to Kane just to close that storyline.
I noticed a thing, like we're talking about different like AEWs and stuff. Their most like fun stars and everything are from New Japan.
Right.
Like, I mean, if you look at AEW, everyone that Vince discards and stuff, they go to New Japan, become huge, and then he wants them back. Cody, Young
Omega.
Bucks, Omega, yeah. Even Marty Scurll, you know, he's
He's
the
still in
NWA. And what's that other one? Friday New York? I forget. It's like another wrestling organization. But yeah, just New Japan, man. That's like where they learn to wrestle, I guess.
And for those of you who are completely new to New Japan, my next argument is that the greatest wrestling match of all time was a New Japan match, and that was for me it's Okada versus Omega 2, which was their 2 out of 3 falls Wrestle Kingdom match. There's arguments for a whole bunch of matches. The three that I hear the most often are that match, Taker Michaels 1 from Mania, and then Steamboat Macho, which is an amazing match, but 80s wrestling compared to now isn't the same.
I think it was good for its era.
Right.
Because it had, just like Razor Ramon against Shawn Michaels in the first ladder match, like it's not the best ladder match, but it's like for the era, you know, it just started something good. But like you look back and you're like, you know, big elbow off the top. Now they're doing great.
It's the transition or development of like high risk matches of the TLCs, from ladder matches to TLCs to chair matches,
right,
to like ECW scaffolding matches.
And, you know? And that's something that the match quality is so much higher in New Japan. So probably the best American wrestler, and I argue with this, but the consensus agreement is that right now it's Jon Moxley. And I have a lot of salt for that because I love Dean Ambrose and I hate Jon Moxley. I hated him in CZW and I hate him now. But he's currently the United States champion in New Japan. And if you watch this year's Wrestle Kingdom, he had a Texas death match against Lance Archer.
Yes.
And compared to like the American hardcore like ECW stuff, it's nothing. It's there's a little bit of blood. There's like 2 table spots and a few chair spots, but the match quality is so good that it seems more brutal. It seems like you could take that, or you could take like a Raven match from like the Raven King of the Mountain match where Sean Waltman's stapling his head to the chair and ridiculous, and it's so much more compelling to watch the Moxley Archer match.
Well, funny you bring that up. October 14th, the rematch, but in AEW is Archer against Moxley.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And that's for the AEW World title. So that kind of shows the degrees where it's like the United States champion in a championship match at Wrestle Kingdom is the main event match in the second biggest American promotion.
And I'm not a fan of Archer, but he is a beast. I mean, just his moves don't look too good to me. It's just he's a giant guy, and he wouldn't shake Keisha's hand.
Yeah, if you won't shake your hand if you don't buy
That's
his
the whole
towel.
different story for another
He
day.
just put out his elbow.
This is pre-Rona
Yeah,
as well.
this is pre-COVID. so.
It's pre-COVID.
So
Yeah.
it was-
He's all, buy this $30 4x4 towel, and maybe I'll think about it.
He did have the title though. This is
Oh,
the
he
time
did.
where he had the
Yeah.
U.S.
He
title.
was the United States champion.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
in San Jose, and my first
I totally forgot about that.
New Japan. Watching all those guys, the first match of New Japan in San Jose was Lion. What would they call it?
Young Lions.
The Young Lions, the dojo, LA dojo.
Yep.
Those guys are better wrestlers than guys that are already in AEW
Right.
and all these other ones. They're so technical, and everything looked good. Like
And-
that match was better than the majority of stuff that you see on TV right now.
And that's why I think that now is the prime time to get into New Japan, because there's so many young talents in New Japan who are coming up that are better than the biggest talents in America. And so in America, other than Shotzi Blackheart, I don't see any young guys coming up because Keith Lee's been pushed horribly
Yes.
since his main roster debut, and he's an older guy. As much as I love him, I think he's older than Okada already.
I know he's in mid-30s, I believe.
Right. Yeah. So looking it up, Keith Lee is 35, so 3 years
yeah.
older than Okada. So maybe have 5 good years left on him. Other than Shotzi, I don't know who they have.
It's
Lee's
true.
awesome.
Like it's true. Like it's not like WWE's like not when it was the 90s and mid 2000s, because now they have their their developmental, quote unquote developmental wrestling on TV. So by the time we see Adam Cole, he's on his last legs. By the time Keith Lee, he's on his last legs. Not saying they're old, not saying that they're going to be washed up soon, but it's just like, well, we can't. The WWE is going to be hard. It's going to be hard to find another Rock and Stone Cold that's going to last for over 5+ years. When we're already cheering for Keith Lee for the last 3 years, he's on the main roster. He's not getting pushed. Then when he does get pushed, hopefully it's not like Kofi where he gets pushed for only 1 year.
Yep.
He had
And
a
that's
bigger
the-
pop in San Jose than anybody.
Yes.
At NXT.
NXT.
And Finn was there. And he had the biggest pop. In fact, remember when I got the belt, I got it because of him.
Yes.
Everyone was just... And to see what they're doing with him is like, it's horrible because he's really good.
But I mean, in New Japan, Sho just turned 31, and so Chauffeur is is he Shawn Michaels? I don't want to say Yo is Marty Jannetty, but it's my favorite tag team is in New Japan, and it's one of those things where both of them are so good you don't want to see them ripped apart, but one is clearly the bigger single star, I would say.
I would think, for me, how I see Sho and Yo, if we're going to talk about Roppongi 3K, and Sha, I love them too. I see them as Paul London and Brian Kendrick if they were bigger and more popular in WWE.
Right.
Because
Right.
Paul Lundgren and Brian Kendrick were, like, to me, still one of the best tag teams in SmackDown Live or SmackDown history, because they were something else. They were doing high fly stuff. They were technical wrestlers, and they fed off each other. And Sho and Yo do the same thing. I can't say which is better because I like Yo instead of
No,
Sho.
I love both of them, but in singles matches, I've seen more from Sho.
Yes, but Sho's been pushed more than Yo.
Right.
Like Yo had chances at the the Neverweight title against Suzuki and Takagi, and Yo, I think he had one match in the junior weight division.
Right.
But when you have Will Ospreay and you
Yeah,
have
and-
the
And I
ticking
think
time bomb,
I think that's huge. That probably we've been talking about New Japan, and we haven't talked about their 27-year-old who's probably in the top 5 most popular wrestlers in the world, with Will Ospreay. And just a quick thing, I don't know enough to comment on his current legal situation and what's being said, but all I can comment is in ring it hasn't affected him since he's been back, and And again, I support anybody who has those horrific acts happen to them, but I have not personally heard anything to be able to definitively say my position on what happened between him and his potential accuser.
On wrestling wise, he's so fun to watch. I put up a clip on him on Instagram. It got so many hits. I mean, backflips, and he makes everything look easy. Everything he does is really good. And I think there are a lot of tag teams out there where one guy is just much, he's got more star power. And I don't know if you got AEW has this one tag team called Private Party.
Oh gosh.
And one guy is so awesome. And if he would have the right training, if you would just have I think if he would go to New Japan or NXT, he would be huge. And I think he's Cassidy.
Yes.
He is so good. He has so much talent, and his partner's horrible.
Yeah, oh. I get the same feels with the Raw Tag Team champions too. But to go back to Will Ospreay, if we're talking about just pure talent, Will Ospreay is just one of the most talented people I've seen. When you get away from all the spots, I get everyone loves flips and the dips and jumping off ropes and all that stuff, and his match against Ricochet is gifable. You don't have to watch the match; it's just straight gifs. But when you get to see him wrestle and wrestle with stakes, he's one of the best.
Yeah, you can have his Ricochet matches, but I'll take his Haramu match over that. Because again, there's another guy that we haven't even brought up. Haramu Takahashi is amazing. So he's so in New Japan they treat the cruiserweights differently. It's the junior heavyweight division, and one of the biggest stars essentially had a career-threatening injury and came back out of nowhere and put on what I think was, I personally think it was the best match of Wrestle Kingdom this year with Will Ospreay. It's the Naito Okada match was great. Okada Ibushi match was great, but the one that, and of course you're gonna have the emotions with Liger's retirement matches, but for me, as far as engagement, their match was the best match of the night.
That's the clip I put from that match on of those two. It was awesome. It was a great match. Those two guys are so good. Watching New Japan, it's just so different.
And so one of the biggest complaints that I get from a lot of people is that a lot of people who grew up in our day and age with wrestling talk about that they miss faction warfare.
Oh yes,
and New Japan has the greatest factions bar none. It has so you have the Bullet Club, which is probably the most well known in America. Which it's essentially the NWO. It was started by Frugal Devitt, who most people in America know as Finn Balor, and it was essentially foreigners coming to New Japan and basically spitting in the face of these. Of this strong wrestling tradition.
Yes.
Then you have Chaos, which is essentially the same thing. It's the kind of strong style, old school wrestlers who just wanted to shake things up, and that was started by Shinsuke Nakamura, and now it's led by Okada, and it's still amazing to watch. Then you have LIJ, which is an interesting concept, and Keish is the big LIJ person. So I'll kind of turn it over to him to talk about Naito and his craziness.
Yeah, with the LIJ crew, it's weird to call them a faction because even then, when one of them gets jumped after a match, none of them come out because they're individuals within a group, right? So you have to think about it that way.
Dude, I didn't even think they were a team. Yeah. I'm like, where's everybody else? They have the same shirts on.
So you can watch Dominion, and so Dominion Naito is a double champion. He's the Intercontinental and World Champion, and somebody comes out dressed as an LIJ member.
The smallest LIJ member.
It could have been me.
Bushi.
And not only does the rest of LIJ not come out to to protect their leader. The guy who's being faked doesn't come out to be like, yo, it's not me. They just let the beatdown happen.
Dude, he literally came out in a walker. And the other guy still walking to the back.
Yeah, Jado, it literally he had to throw the kendo stick into the ring because he was only halfway down there when the beatdown started.
He only uses a kendo stick, right? Because he needs it like a cane, right?
Yeah, he couldn't get down there
but we got to see him in a match, which still shocks me to this day.
Well, I was excited because I thought, to be honest, when everyone talked about Jado, I thought he was playing with us. So when they put him in a tag team match, and he was tagged in, I popped so loud.
So imagine if Paul Heyman now was in a tag match, and then like he gets tagged in, like not while some guy's passed out, like tags in to actually try to work over somebody.
And it's not an instant tag after. He's in the match for a good like 3 minutes until he gets tagged back out.
And I mean, and that doesn't include Suzuki-gun, which is their kind of the closest to a non-heel Heart Foundation, where it's like technical. So if you take the like foreigner thing out of the Heart Foundation, it's like this technically beautiful wrestling. And then you have Watu's new group they also have the new faction, the Blue Faction, that's essentially just the comedy.
Oh yeah, the Blue Faction with the they
have a comedy faction.
I still
as well.
don't understand how they pushed him as they just this big reveal. I think of Wrestle Kingdom, and it was just the guy in blue hair and the blue pants.
It's so imagine if the WWE knew the gobbledygooker was a joke. And they're just like, no, we know this is a joke, but we're going with it. Like that's essentially what the Blue Faction is.
To even think about the Blue Faction, then the one thing I always think about Blue Faction, of course, is like the Jobbers, and of course Blue Meanie and Blue NWO. I was like, so for that, like, because we're from America, so we know about if you've been a wrestling fan for the last 20 plus years, you know about those factions. So it's hard to take someone, a male character who wears all blue, seriously. Like, I get Leva Bates and blue pants, and that was really cool. She fed with the funny and all that stuff, but I was like, man, this is not gonna get over if he actually comes over to the US.
And this is a rumor that I 100% think is a joke. I think it's a joke, so don't take it seriously. But members have put it out there that they want Batista in the Blue Faction just to bring back Blutista, which would be amazing.
Thankfully, he's retired. He announced his retirement. So hopefully
I think you can see the influence on AEW from New Japan, because they're doing that whole faction thing. If you look,
right,
all their wrestlers now are like part of a faction, and you start looking at what they're doing, and it's the New Japan playbook. It's like, okay, well, this guy comes in, he's part of, Brody Lee, the Dark Order, or
the
FTR. To me, that's my favorite tag team. They were what they call the Revival. They're old school. They could have been part of the Four Horsemen.
Which they might be the new Horsemen.
There's arguments over the trademark right now.
Yeah, so
but
you have the American Nightmare family.
I bet you if you're like a wrestling fan and you start watching New Japan, you're going to start going like, hold on, this is happening in WWE, this is happening over here. And they make it seem like they're the ones innovating when it's actually coming from New Japan and stuff. Now that I see, a lot of the stuff.
Yeah. If you look at the most over things in wrestling over the past 10 years, if you take out the Shield and you take out Becky Lynch, then essentially it's New Japan. And I know people are going to be screaming and arguing about Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho left to go to New Japan.
Yep.
He didn't leave to go to AEW. The reason he didn't sign a contract was that he wanted to wrestle in New Japan before he got too old to do it. People are going to argue with me about the Demon. The Demon is a take off of Frugal Devitt's character, off of his the darker side of his character in New Japan.
And Jericho's not even a product of WWE.
No.
He wrestled in Canada, and then he came here for Jim Cornette.
And he also
wrestled in Mexico.
He wrestled in Japan when he was very young as the fake Justin Liger. But again, so when the fake Jushin Liger thing didn't work, they know to pull the plug on it. They're like essentially after his. So essentially it was. I don't know how many people remember this because it was a very dark time. But if they remember Sin Cara Negro.
Yes,
it was
Lazul and Negro. Yes.
Right. They did that where the kind of most over person in New Japan was Jushin Thunder Liger. So they had a fake Jushin Thunder Liger that was Liger Blue, and it was a young Chris Jericho in a match. And he came backstage, and Antonio Inoki, who is more or less the Triple H of New Japan, said, "You look stupid. Take that off." And that was the end of the gimmick.
Yeah, you don't mess with that guy.
There's a lot of people in New Japan you don't mess with. Period.
Who the hell didn't he beat the crap out of some guy that wouldn't sell for him back in the day?
The Great Antonio.
Oh yeah,
the Great Antonio didn't sell for him, so Antonio Inoki literally beat the crap out of him in a match.
Yeah, in the same match he wasn't selling for him. So
the big guy, he would just hit his belly.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? NWO was from New Japan also.
NWO started in New Japan,
and that's a one of the biggest things ever in wrestling, in American wrestling, and that's another product of Japan, New Japan.
And again, like if you go back, another argument people will give me is NXT. When NXT took off, the match that started it was Shinsuke. Was essentially when Shinsuke Nakamura.
Yeah, Shinsuke
came.
versus Sami Zayn, Texas. Yes,
and that was what started the modern NXT blow up was him and Asuka. And the women's division is separate because New Japan is starting its thing with Stardom, but it's just starting. But Shinsuke is the one who essentially made NXT. You can talk about Finn kind of getting over, but again, Finn was signed from New Japan.
Yeah.
yes,
And the modern day kind of revival until recently of WWE was in the Royal Rumble when AJ Styles showed up. AJ Styles was pretty much a dead character when he left Impact.
I loved him in TNA. He was so man.
But at his end, they saddled him with like this weird getting drugged affair storyline.
Yeah.
The new Nature Boy, which is completely against his. He was pretty much dead.
The oddest thing.
And then New Japan revitalized him, and he had a match with Shinsuke, which is probably the top 10 greatest matches of all time. It's just a hard hitting like they literally were actually kicking each other, like they weren't holding anything back. And the end of that match, you just when Shinsuke. It's the Bumaye in Japan. It's the Kinshasa here. Hits it to the back of his head instead of the front. It's just, it was such a beautiful match. And without that, there's no way WWE would have signed AJ. There's no chance.
I thought that when he left TNA, because I wasn't familiar with New Japan, I go, what a waste. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm like, God damn, like, but he was really loyal to TNA and everything, and they sort of screwed him over. And then I'm watching WWE, and like someone's like, "Hey, AJ Styles." It was like, and I'm like, "What the hell?" I'm like, I thought he was. I thought he retired, but he's so talented, man. New Japan is like the fountain of youth. It just revitalizes people, and everything. Every person, like old school wrestler and stuff. You know, I love Jim Cornette because he's a trash talker, but you hear him talk. And you tell he tells so many awesome stories about New Japan, and it's awesome. He talks better about New Japan than most organizations today.
Right.
Just it's proof. NXT proved that if you just wrestle and you have good matches, you become popular. That's why Vince tried to take it away from Triple H because he's starting to get popular and he wants to put his little spin on it. But if you just wrestle and you have great matches, who cares about all the drama on the outside? That's what I like about New Japan. The drama's in the ring.
Right.
Old school. Let's talk on the mics. Let's get jumped and not have my partners come and rescue me, Lij. But I love it. It's what wrestling, in my opinion, should be. It's like,
and to kind of get it to the modern day stuff, and for the new people who've been New Japan fans for a while, we're going to get into some of the modern stuff. To me, the Royal Rumble had always been the biggest gimmick, the most fun thing to watch for a long time, but they've kind of dropped the ball a little bit recently. In not letting Shinsuke win the belt. Again, there's probably personal things in there, but then the Seth Brock match not being the main event when he won, it being the curtain jerker for Mania,
or even for when Randy won,
right?
And Randy versus Bray not being the main event, though that match should never main evented, or that should have been the first match overall, just in hindsight.
Right.
But Randy won the Royal Rumble, and he wasn't the main event for the WrestleMania. He won the Royal Rumble for.
And I mean, McIntyre and Brock shouldn't have been the main event. It should have been Taker AJ this year. But hindsight being what it is, the G1 Climax is, to me, the most exciting thing in wrestling. And for those of you who are just joining us, they're trying to get to know New Japan. The G1 Climax is a combination of the King of the Ring mixed with Money in the Bank. So it's 1 month, 91 matches, where you separate it into pods of 12 people. And it's the 12 biggest stars in New Japan at the time. Well, usually it's the 11 biggest stars and Yano in one block, and then then 12 other stars in the other block.
Yano one block. Yano is a big star.
So Yano's an interesting. It's hard to describe Yano. It's imagine if Gilbert didn't lose all the time and because of it got over. So like for example, his first round of the G1 this year, he duct taped a guy to one of the ring attendants and then got back in the ring before he got counted out. That's how he won his match.
He won 2 matches like that.
Yes, he's won 2 matches.
Jesus.
Yes. So you take these 24 wrestlers, you separate them into 2 pods, and then everybody wrestles each other in the pods. You get 2 points for a win, 1 point for a draw, or 0 for a loss, and then whoever wins that pod gets a briefcase that guarantees them a match for the title of their choice at Wrestle Kingdom, which is their WrestleMania.
And what the caveat is, the world champion is in this tournament as well. So if the champion wins, he gets to choose his opponent at Wrestle Kingdom as well.
Right. And this year there's a lot of very interesting storylines. So we're kind of gonna get into. I think it's best if we go through all 24 wrestlers in each block and kind of say what's going on with them. So first is in block A. There's currently is it a 5 or is it a 6-way tie? So it's a 5-way tie for first place. And nobody is undefeated this year. Usually, so for example, last year Jon Moxley was undefeated through
4 matches.
Through 4 matches,
Yes.
And then again Yano duct taped him to a ring post, and he got
No,
counted
he
out.
ducked him to Shooter, which he was a young lion that Moxley just brought in. He just put under his wing for laughs and giggles.
Right.
Then Yano taped them together outside the ring, and 20 counts later, he won.
and also just a heads up, the G1 is a little bit different this year because certain foreign wrestlers weren't allowed into the country. Jon Moxley or Jonathan Good being one of them, as his wife did have a battle with COVID, so he would have had to go through a significant quarantine before he was able to wrestle, but several of them were just allowed in. So the 5-way tie in Block A is between Taichi, Jay White, Will Ospreay, Minoru Suzuki, and Kota Ibushi. So starting with Taichi, Taichi's another wrestler that I don't know if he would get over in America. He's essentially an anime character if he was a wrestler. He comes to the ring wearing an opera mask and singing. He's
like their Fandango.
No, I wouldn't say that because
Well, I mean,
even
like
then,
the way he
like
dresses up. And,
his escort is really cool.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, so it's an ongoing joke that his matches always have to go longer because he starts in full pants and then rips them off to shorts during the matches.
like Phantom of the Opera type guy looking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's so charismatic though that it works. And I know Keish, you're not a fan of him.
Well, I'm not a fan of the theatrics, but for a guy who's been passed down like the metal glove, I forget who the guy was, but the metal glove of the last another gimmick weapon for him,
right?
And he also is, tag team. He's the heavyweight champion tag teams with Zack Sabre Jr., I believe.
Yes. And he's in Suzuki Gun still, correct?
He's still in Suzuki Gun, and he was the trainer for Naito before Naito became Naito. So he has a lot of history for sure. With his matches are not the most fun, but they're the most methodical for sure,
and they're fun to watch. Yeah. So the next one is someone that all of us will have some stuff to say.
Damn, I'm already looking at it.
So Jay White. Jay White has kind of been thrust into a prominent role. He is the fourth leader of the Bullet Club. The Bullet Club's first leader was Frugal Devitt, who became Finn Balor, a big name in professional wrestling. Second one, AJ Styles, big name before, probably in the biggest feud other than Sasha Banks and Bayley at the time in WWE.
Yes.
Big name. Third one, Kenny Omega.
Yeah.
Probably one of the greatest in-ring workers that's around today.
He's got like he's the theatrics and everything, but
Right.
he knows how to. Oh God, I don't know.
Huge name. And then you have Switchblade Jay White, who is so he's a Kiwi wrestler from New Zealand, and if you're trying to get into New Japan and you're just trying to watch a random match and it ends up coming up with a Jay White match,
Skip it.
just go to the next one. He's the only wrestler. I say Zack Sabre Jr. too, but I know that there's detractors against me. But
Yes.
Jay White is he's so boring to watch. He has this weird, I guess the closest is Sami Callihan to his gimmick in America. He's like a skinny, boring Sami Callihan.
Dresses like a weird pirate. Like I don't know, man. He dresses like somebody out of Assassin's Creed. Like those types of from
Right.
just weird and
Well,
sucks.
And his
Keish, you're his manager. So.
Gator.
Oh,
So there's a strong thing. We'll post it in video of something. If a picture of me and the picture of
we were
Gato.
live in San Jose, and Craig here goes, "Hey Keish, what are you doing managing?" And I look out the ring, and I'm like, "He's not." Did you wear a fedora? And I look, Keish is right next to me.
So Gato, who is Jay White's manager, looks very similar to one of the co-hosts, and he was the manager of Okada at one point, and then he turned. It's if when Paul Heyman turned on Rob Van Dam in WWECW, but if people were still watching, is what happened. It's the most over face manager in the company, just all of a sudden like aligning himself with the biggest heel faction, but they have to give him to Jay White because Jay is not interesting.
Charisma.
He's no charisma. His matches
even
suck.
He has a look like that guy from. He was champion. He's married to Becky Lynch. What's his name?
Oh,
Seth Rollins.
He looks like Seth Rollins.
He doesn't have nearly the skill or
like the hair.
Yeah, he has the greaseball hair
Yeah.
and
because his look doesn't fit the word switchblade.
Right.
I heard the last switchblade was like a rugged, long beard dude.
Yeah,
and now
and
this
now
baby
he has
face.
now it's this baby face with a goatee and greasy hair. And I wish he was still quarantined in New Zealand. The G1 would have been much better. And then the next one is Will Ospreay, who we've talked about is
he's great.
in-ring performer. He's one of the most exciting people that you could ever watch. And the interesting story with Will Ospreay is that Ospreay has been he's been essentially what Neville was in the cruiserweight division.
Ooh, actually, that's a really good
where
comparison.
he was essentially like the big over guy for the junior heavyweight for years, and nobody could touch him. And then when he dropped the belt, he was injured in the match and went away. And when he came back, he's been on this tear as a singles wrestler, and he's in the Chaos group with Okada. And one of the kind of underground rumblings is, what does it mean if Ospreay finishes above Okada in the G1 this year? And the fact that they do have him over Okada, and I forgot what day their match is, but that's going to be one of the matches of the tournament.
Okada against Ospreay.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Right
it's
there?
the 16th.
Yeah, it's the 17th. Night 17. So that's going to be that's the finale of the A block, which is going to be a huge night anyway.
Hopefully, that's like, I really hope that's for the spot for the final night.
Right, and we're going to get into our predictions at the end of this. But I'll kind of leave it to Quiche for our next one, because Minoru is also at the top of A block right now.
Yes, Minoru Suzuki has 6 points. He's, of course, the leader of Suzuki-gun, if you guys didn't suspect, because of the last name. But this guy, man, if you want something hard-hitting, and if you want someone that, if you can put, like, William Regal and who's another hard-hitting, just a hard-hitting wrestler? Finley together,
Finley, yeah,
and you make him Asian. That's Minoru Suzuki.
Right.
Like, there's no flash into his matches. He'll put you in holds and just make you suffer.
Other than his haircut.
Yeah, his haircut looks
and
like
his best entrance.
It looked like when Muhammad Ali tried to cut someone's hair back in the
day. It's essentially. If you remember the Game Master that Will Bentley played in the Hunger Games movie, his beard, that's Minoru's haircut. And the last person tied for the top of the block is Kota Ibushi.
The last one who won last year.
Kota Ibushi won last year, and then in controversial fashion, they had kind of this big 4-person feud between Okada, Naito, Jay White, unfortunately, and Ibushi, where it was a winner takes all both titles. So there are people who clamored that Ibushi never got his rightful title match. He did have a title match against Okada night one. But it's one of those things where people feel it was overshadowed because typically the G1 Climax winner gets a main event slot against the world champion.
Yeah, that's my first Wrestle Kingdom, and he's a really good wrestler.
And he's amazing. If you look on YouTube, there's a match of him against a blow-up dummy that is probably one of the best. It's better than probably 95% of WWE matches, and it's amazing. And then going to the sole person who is below this is Kazuchika Okada, who they did some interesting things with Okada already, in that he did lose to Ibushi. He did lose to Jay White, unfortunately, in a match that was rough. But then he just kind of ran roughshod over Taichi, who was the leader of the block at that point, and he beat Takahashi, who is also getting an interesting story that we'll talk about in a little bit. But below them with 2 points is Shingo Takagi, Tomohiro Ishii, and Jeff Cobb. So Shingo is also one that will defer to Quiche because he's with your boys.
Yeah, LIJ. And, he was, when he first got into New Japan, he was the biggest Super Junior ever.
Yeah, he was. It was kind of like when Samoa Joe was in the X division and just like 8 people.
Yeah, that's what it was for the longest time until he met Will Ospreay in that tournament, which he knocked off Shingo's winning streak But Shingo is, I believe, he was the neverweight champion coming in, but Minoru took the belt from him before the tournaments.
I think it was right before it started.
Yeah, right before it started, because I remember watching that. Because I thought Shingo was going to win that, because what better way to build a new star than beating Minoru Suzuki? And that didn't go the way I thought it would do, but I love both these men, so I don't mind either one not having the title, either one having the title. It's just really weird that Shingo only has 2 points, and it just seems that ever since he left the junior division, he's not been super dominant. He's only been dominant in tag teams, and it just shows when he had the neverweight three-man, and I don't know if they'll ever put Sonata and Shingo together as a tag team, if that will ever happen, but we'll see. But Shingo he's something to watch over, but he is one of the more older veterans in this tournament.
Before we leave Block A, I just want to say that Okada has the best outfit or whatever when he walks to the ring. You got to see this thing.
And just the thing, it's like there's so the gimmicks in New Japan they take it very seriously. So Okada's is the Rainmaker, but it's not. So it's like this rich aristocrat type thing, but it's not like Ted DiBiase where it's this joke. It's that he's kind of this that he's been able to afford the best, and he's become the best at everything. Shingo is the dragon, and he comes out with a full dragon face mask. And they get very into the characters. There's
the robe too that Shingo wears is a dragon print that leads all the way up to his face mask, because his hood goes over his head, so it looks like he's a dragon in a hood.
And there's there's gimmicks that are passed on from generation. Like we're on our 4th tiger mask, and it's something that it's more prideful than kind of the WWE gimmicks, except for when the Fiend is kind of at his height. So next up is Tomohiro Ishii, who's a member of Chaos. And yes, his nickname is the Pitbull, because if you think of what a Japanese human Pitbull would look like, that's essentially what Ishii looks like.
His head's gigantic.
Yep.
It's crazy, because I'm 5'7", and I'm taller than him.
Yeah,
and I have a picture with him, and I'm a good few inches taller than him. It's crazy.
Imagine if the cruiserweight, somebody of a cruiserweight size in the WWE was strong enough to pull off a vertical stalling brainbuster, which is his finishing move, and it's amazing how much strength this guy has. And so all the factions have what's essentially like their Fale probably says it best. It's their underboss. It's like their enforcer. That's their little terrier that's there to
sergeant
stop
at arms,
things.
right?
Yep. Right. And Ishii is essentially that for Chaos. It's that it's you had to get to Okada or Ospreay or kind of those are the two big leaders. Is you have to go through him, and Shingo is more or less that for LIJ now without Evil, who we'll get to in B block, for LIJ. So it's very interesting to see them. And then the other person with 2 points is Jeff Cobb,
Mr. Athletic,
who again made a lot of noise recently because both AEW and WWE tried to sign him when his contract came up.
Yeah, he's from a Ring of Honor, right?
Right.
That's where I saw him.
That's really
before.
odd, because he showed up on AEW for like 2 nights as the enforcer. Then out of nowhere, here comes Jack Swagger or something. Right. I don't know how that worked, but I just remember seeing him. Then he disappeared.
I think it's because at the time AEW was working with New Japan, and then there was a little falling out.
There was a falling out that there's different stories. Some people say it's because they didn't let Tanahashi beat Jericho to get the AEW title shot. There's rumors that it was that they weren't going to release Omega to come back to New Japan. It was a whole bunch of things, but essentially the only person who's been immune to that has been Jon Moxley, who said more or less, I'm gone if you try to hold me down.
Yeah, he's the biggest thing in wrestling, so he can just
he can make demands right now.
Yes.
Not to get away real quick from the A block, but
of course,
I think that before the whole COVID thing, you were saying we were talking another time about New Japan's going to make it big in America. We see, and I thought that AEW was going to be like one of those doors to start introducing them.
I think COVID. I think without COVID, New Japan would be the second biggest promotion in America right now.
Yeah, it's awesome. All right, guys.
But just to kind of get back to A Block, Jeff Cobb turned down some big money offers to be essentially in the bottom of the card in the G1, which should show you how much kind of respect that these people have. And the last one is Yujiro Takahashi. Not to be confused with Hiramu Takahashi, who we talked about a little bit earlier. So Yujiro is interesting. So he is more or less known as kind of the playboy of the Bullet Club. He comes out with kind of their female ring girl, and he's supposed to be this big playboy.
Yeah, but called the Tokyo Pimp.
But the thing that's going interestingly with him is that now the Bullet Club is starting to kind of look inward at each other, and the fact that they've given him 0 points. He's had a tough run so far. He lost to Okada, Will Ospreay, Suzuki, and Taichi. So it's all people who are high up. It's 3 people who are tied for the top slot, and then Okada. But at the same time, with the Bullet Club kind of splintering after something we'll talk about when we get to the B block, it's very interesting that one of the longest standing members of the Bullet Club is the only person left in the tournament who has 0 points.
Yeah, it's interesting because he had a feud with Okada right before this, and though it was a hard feud to take seriously because he's considered a junior heavyweight as well. Most of the time, to my knowledge, yeah. He considered that, and knowing as a Tokyo Pimp, he's always teamed up with. I always call him the fat version of Sami Zayn.
Chase Owens.
Chase Owens, and just all the other underlings of Bullet Club, and he's never gotten like a push. Like even when it comes to never open weight, the triple team or the cruiserweight tag team titles, he's never been around or even like held a stone to like, oh, we should take him seriously.
I mean, Peter is.
Yeah, she's amazing.
She's pushed a lot more than he is for a reason.
Yeah,
he's the Iron Mike Sharp of Bullet Club,
basically.
Well, you all need those guys, to fill gaps, and
And it's interesting to see what's going to become of the Bullet Club after this tournament. So that's A block. In B block, there are only 3 leaders, and it's a very, very interesting mix. So the overall leader, of course, is Tetsuya Naito,
the world heavyweight and intercontinental champion.
So it's and probably I would say the biggest babyface in wrestling. That just he's super over, super well known, and we've kind of touched on him already. So we're going to go to another person that we've touched on, but is in an interesting spot, and that is Yano. Is currently tied for the lead with 6 points, holding a win over Tanahashi, who we haven't talked about, but we will get to, and why that's so shocking. He has a win over Sonata, who we'll get to, a win over Evil, who is the former world and intercontinental champion 2 months ago.
Yes.
And this is a guy who wins most of his matches by cheating. So if you look at it, most of the matches, they're averaging about 15 minutes or so. His longest match in the tournament is 7 minutes and 15 seconds.
Dude, he's fun to watch. I like.
So for example, in one of his matches, the entire match he spent trying to take the turnbuckle covers off. Like he spent the entire match trying to do that, and then his partner got flung into them, and he used his body to block it, and then stole the referee so he couldn't make the count. He's a comedy character that's done in a fun way, but has some menace because he's not an idiot. It's like, so if Santino wasn't idiot.
Yeah, if Santino was a threat to a higher mid card than he was, like when he held the ICTI championship, it wasn't taken seriously. No one took that championship seriously. Even when he had the honky meter, it wasn't taken seriously. With Yano, like it makes you always think like, how did he just win? And he won that way. And the great thing about Yano, he gets the crowd into it. Though you're not supposed to clap that loud or chant, he kind of like eggs the crowd on of clapping and chanting. And the stuff he does before matches of wanting to shake people's hand, he has the hand sanitizer spray. So he goes to his opponents and hand sanitizes his hands before locking up with them, gives them promotional DVDs, his own shirts.
Yeah, he brings pro wrestle t-shirts and gives them
when
to
Mick Foley sort of became good. You remember he'd handing out the shirts. And he's really fun to watch. I like him.
And then we have Juice Robinson. Who
I love Juice
Robinson.
Robinson.
My God.
Is another one that we're split on. Juice, probably of all of these characters, he's one of probably the most well-known in America because he kind of started in the indie scene around America. He's primarily was known as a tag team guy, and then got over. His partner got injured, and he got over during that time. And
he got over a lot. It's not even just got over. He got over like Becky Lynch got over.
Yeah, he's
in a different country.
But to me, he's X-Pac to me. He will always be X-Pac to me, where he's a joke character, and it's a little bit too much joke. It's like when X-Pac did the Bronco Buster for the 18th time in a match, and we're like, okay, we've seen it. We can get over that's, and it hasn't. The Japanese crowds haven't gotten over it yet, but I have. I don't know about where you guys are at with him.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I like him a lot. I don't know why. When I saw him, I go, this guy's a douchebag. He looked like three of my frat boy friends that I grew up with. He's horrible. I mean, he wrestles good. Everything about him should give you a headache when you see him. His outfits, everything. He dresses like Alice in Wonderland had like a strip club.
At one time, he would come to the ring with a coat that was covered in Beanie Babies.
Oh yeah, he's so horrible. I like him. I'll watch him all day over Jay White.
I mean, but that's not.
Well, that's not saying a lot.
That's not saying much.
So for me, for Juice Robinson, I would say if Zack Ryder got his push that he deserved, this is the ceiling of Zack Ryder's push, basically. Like I get it. I get why he was popular. He had a certain look when he was dressing all white like a random-looking pirate. Now he's coming out in
his fake Eminem pirate gears.
Eminem fake pirate gear. Now he's coming out as a blues brother, like, in like torn, like, suits and with the shades and the same blues brother hat. Just for me, like, I get it. He's a good wrestler. I just don't need all the yelling.
He's a mid-carder. That he's a guy you have there just to like spice things up in the middle, so you don't have a boring match. I don't see him where he's at. Like, I really don't believe he should be where he's at with points. I think he's a mid-carder, and it's like launching fireworks. It's like pew 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 but he's too weird, and he's like me. He's just weird.
Right. But, he needs to stay in the tag division. To me, at least, he needs to.
I'll give him this though. He didn't complain when he had to drop the U.S. title to Moxley, so I'll give him that. Juice knows when things are hot. He knows he gets the pulse for sure. He puts
the business first, and that's why they give him a push, because no matter what they ask him to do, he does it. And when you got a guy like that, you're going to give him a little push here and there,
He's dating Tony Storm. That's as much of a push as the guy needs.
Champions with Finley Jr.
Are they still champions?
No, when they were before his. I thought you were talking about his partner getting injured. He was his partner at that time. So it's like Juice Robinson is. We all get it. He's a good wrestler. There's a lot of pluses and minuses depending on who you are.
There needs to be a ceiling.
There's got to be a ceiling. I really hope he does find his niche of being a serious wrestler. Not that I'm not taking him seriously. It's just I don't see him going after Okada, Naito, or even as of right now Taichi. So
when him and Finley got wrecked by Archer, it's like
Oh, that was hilarious. Finley Jr., not Finley
Finley
Sr.
Jr., Finley Jr.
And the middle block is a very interesting place. So the people with 4 points, the top one is Kenta, who most people in America will remember as Hideo Itami, who again in America was a fantastic worker, but Vince didn't like him because he was too small and because he was Japanese. But he's the man who came up with the Go to Sleep, and it was kind of he was probably one of the biggest shock moments of 2019 in Japan, where it's essentially imagine if Chris Jericho came back to WWE, and so he's celebrated, he's over, and all of this. Then all of a sudden, he punched Becky Lynch in the face, and joined with like the Monday Night Messiah faction. Is what Kenta did. When he came back to Japan, it was this huge celebration, and he was trained by a man whose career's done. They keep teasing that he's going to come back, but Shibata is done.
Because he can't.
The man shredded his neck, much worse than Edge's injury, and he's done. And it was this big thing that they were friends, and that Shibata had brought Kenta back to the company, and then Kenta turned on all of New Japan, joined the Bullet Club to get the Neverweight Open Championship in kind of this open slap of the face, and they even had Shibata come out and take a few bumps to sell it, and it was this huge shocking moment that Kenta. And how they sold it in storyline was that Kenta had fallen in love with American culture and had turned his back on the Japanese style of wrestling while he was here.
Yeah, on that turn against Shibata, like we all gasped, and I think the gasp came from the TV as well. Like while watching,
but you could hear the audience.
You can hear just like people are like, "This guy is actually hitting a guy that shouldn't be even getting hit." And of course, at the end when he sat cross-legged on top of Shibata, which is Kenta's pose, and Shibata's supposed to be posing behind him, like the Steiner brothers, where one's on the on fours and one's above him. So for Kenta to sit on top of his chest, like cross-legged, with all of Bullet Club around him,
right,
celebrating, it was a tough thing to see, but it was a very, very strong moment. To also put for Kenta, he does have the Money in the Bank for the U.S. title waiting, so he's waiting for Moxley to come back to get that title. I just don't understand why Moxley can't just fly to LA and Kenta can fight him there, but that's a whole different story from
there's some rumors that they're trying to figure out how to have that match, because it's going to be an amazing match.
It won't be in California
happens.
now with all the rules and
True.
stuff we have here.
And then you have Zack Sabre Jr., who I've made my feelings very well known. He's in Suzuki-gun, very technical wrestler. Currently half of the IWGP Tag Team Champions.
Yes.
Kind of known more in Britain. He's one of these. There's kind of this working relationship between several of the big British companies.
Yeah, he has one of their titles, right?
Yes, or he did. I don't know if he still does.
I think he does, because he's not wearing that. He's not wearing the tag team belt around his waist when he comes out.
Right, and yeah, it's fine. It's just, so imagine if CM Punk's like straight edge gimmick like was on your last nerve, and that is Zack Sabre to me, because he pushes the vegan lifestyle, he pushes the technical it gets to me, and I was never really big with him, but I don't know where you guys set with him.
I know they call him the submission master, but it's like too much. Like, what's his name before he took out his whole family? Benoit, right?
Benoit.
He was all about that stuff, but he wasn't boring. Like, he just tries to. It just gets too slow. It's methodical. It's like, I don't know. It's just like his fights don't really excite me. Like,
when there were rumors that he was going to beat Okada for the belt, I was terrified.
So for me and Zack Sabre Jr., I have a totally different viewpoint.
Yeah.
Of course,
Totally.
I'm one of the few people that like Zack Sabre Jr. My first encounter with him was, of course, the cruiserweight tournament in WWE when Kota Ibushi and Zack Sabre Jr. were in that tournament. Of course, I always saw him as what I thought William Regal could be if he was in perfect shape and just talk hella crap. So I love the technical part of wrestling, and of course, like loving Minoru Suzuki, it's hard not to like another person like him.
He's got those twiggy legs.
Those super strong, long arms, super long legs. The way he can like manipulate you and just like make you fall in pain, and he's hardly work. It feels like he's hardly working, and he's destroying you. That's why I love him.
I think if he develops some charisma, he puts, you know what I mean, then he'll be more likable. I just think it's like if you're just eating white bread. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like, you know what I mean. It's just
if you're fed the same thing, and you can like that thing, but if you're fed it over and over again,
yeah, he's like a cocky teenager, not a cocky adult.
If he can get somebody to like, like someone in his corner, somebody to liven him up, I think that's what he needs. Because
that's why I thought, Taka Michinoku was there for. I think because when he was introducing Zack Sabre Jr., I was super juiced. I'm like, this is perfect.
And yes, we are talking about Funaki's Kaientai tag team partner, Taka Michinoku, who is still wrestling in New Japan and putting on very good matches.
Yeah. And he passed down his move to Zack Sabre Jr. There's so many things about Zack Sabre I love that most people don't.
Well, he's still really young, right? He's like,
yeah, I think he's 27. I want to say
1933.
Yeah. So he just looks much younger than he is.
I think he still has time if he can get like a gimmick or something that livens him up. You know what I mean? Like, this is where some of Vince McMahon's little magic would help somebody like him.
But what makes it hard is he's a year older than Okada.
Yeah,
it's just in New Japan. It's hard to. It's just Okada's still so young. It's just and I don't want to say that Okada's like year of terror,
yeah.
Triple H like holding on to the belt. Okada takes significant times away from the belt, but it's like when you have him, you can't keep him out of the main event picture for forever.
I think for Zack Sabre Jr. he doesn't have a presence coming to the ring. Kenta has a presence. Mm-hmm. Juice Robinson has a presence. Yano has a presence.
Yeah,
Zack Sabre comes to the ring. He looks like a wannabe Fonz.
Yep.
See, when he's doing his moves too, and he celebrates, he doesn't sell it. It just doesn't.
But that's the wannabe Fonz thing. It kind of hits the nail on the head. It's like the worst of Finn Balor when he was like the white meat baby face, when he wouldn't come out as the demon and he's just like smiling, and like that's, imagine that, but even you didn't have like the gay pride thing or anything. He doesn't have anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, he needs something.
He just needs a presence about him. Like when he's in the ring, it's Zack Sabre Jr. When he's outside the ring, he could just be another lanky dude.
Right.
Yeah.
So and also with 4 points is Evil, who is in a very, very interesting spot. Evil is, I think, the only New Japan person who's been mentioned on WWE TV in like 30 years, because he is engaged to current NXT Women's Champion Io Shirai. But so again, he was in LIJ, kind of their guard dog for a long time, protecting Naito.
Few founding members too.
Yeah, he was the founding.
Oh yeah, it was the founding member.
So it was him and Naito. It was this huge thing where they were best friends, and then it turned heel, and it was this sudden. And you would think Evil, like, it's obviously a heel name, but he'd been a face for years, and it just all of a sudden he turned on LIJ, joined Bullet Club, won both titles, the world and the IC title, and that's kind of been an up and down road where it's kind of this three-way fight for power in the Bullet Club between Kenta, Evil, and Jay White, because Jay has obviously been stuck in New Zealand, and
he sells it. When I saw him do that, I'm like, oh my god! I genuinely then he's. You know what it reminded me of? Remember when what's his name? Andre the Giant finally got sick of Hulk Hogan and he turned, you know,
he
it's
ripped
like,
his shirt off.
I sort of see him like, you know, he's like, hey, you know, like I've been your guard dog forever. Now it's my turn. I'm sick of always, you know, being the guy that, you know, that's, you know, I'm a star, but I'm not up here. You can totally see why he turned, like, you know, gimmick wise, why he turned and stuff.
And I really like Evil now. One of the biggest reasons why his entrances are not super long anymore. Right. So the whole gothic scythe thing is gone, which is it was super hokey watching it. With LIJ, it totally makes sense.
If he was with the group, it was fine. But when it was just him, so imagine if Taker did the big entrance for every match.
Yeah.
Like he had the Druids and everything for every single match.
Even for like a house show.
It was just super long. But Evil, he's a hell of a worker for sure. But yeah, he is an interesting situation because like he has some losses to people that it doesn't make sense for a guy who's a former world heavyweight intercontinental champion, as you said 2 months ago, and it's like
August 29th. So at the very end of August was when he dropped both belts, which is insane that he's in the 4-point block. And then kind of always the wild card of every G1 Climax, Hiroshi Tanahashi.
He's awesome.
Hiroshi is the John Cena of New Japan.
Yes.
People have wanted to have that match for years. It's just he's been so devoted to this company. He's been kind of the standing block. He's been known as the ace of the company for years.
He's 43. He looks so young.
He looks so young, and he still wrestles so well. And it's amazing. And his story is that every G1 people say this is the year that he's done. This is the year that he's not going to win a match, and they kind of played with that this year in that he lost his first 2 matches, and one of those was to Naito, which was insane. And then he started to come back. He handed Juice Robinson his first loss, and he's kind of gotten that mojo again. And also, Tanahashi won the G1 2 years ago.
Yes.
So it's not like he's done, but it's like he's always there. He's always kind of lurking.
And it's cool right now with this storyline continuing from the last event because Tanahashi and Kota Ibushi were the World Heavyweight Tag Team Champions before Taichi and Zack Sabre Jr. took them off. And the one person that was pinned in all those matches was Tanahashi. And Tanahashi, before the G1, blamed himself for losing the titles to Kota Ibushi both times.
Right.
And so for this to continue where it's like, he's been on this decline beforehand, now he's continued decline singles division now. It's interesting what they're going to do with him, because seeing that 4 there, it's cool. He's in the middle of the block. If they switched his name and Kenta's name, wouldn't be as jarring, to be honest. But yeah, it's just really odd because I've never seen Tanahashi struggle like this, and it's not like he came off of injury, like when he lost to Minoru Suzuki for the IT title and he went away. He's coming off like straight up.
He's coming off of what's been billed as the roughest
If you watch
year
him
of his career.
wrestle, you would never think he's in his 40s. He's so good. I like him a lot. I just even when he beat Liger on Liger's, he's just like his gimmick, everything. He seems like a really like good guy. I like his style. I like everything about the guy.
Right.
Like we'll get to that later, but I like him a lot.
Right. And then when we're getting into the 2 points, Yoshihashi, who he's part of the 6-man Neverweight team.
Yes.
Correct.
Well, for one of the Chaos crew.
Right. He's one of the Chaos factions. I can't definitively say this because I have no information to prove this. But my feeling is that this was Jon Moxley's spot and they needed somebody. So they took somebody who's kind of he's kind of over. He's kind of an interesting guy. He's kind of like, he puts the chaos in chaos a little bit.
He sort of looks like the Geico caveman.
Yeah, he's
strong ties to Shinsuke Nakamura. That's
ties to Shinsuke. He's the closest that you'll see to probably a luchador in Japan. He still puts on great matches and stuff, but I feel like
This could have gone someone else.
this could have gone. I mean,
I totally agree.
the six man title. I'm just looking up now. That's his first title in New Japan in 12 years. I feel this was Moxley's spot before it was definitively said that he couldn't go to Japan
because so many people couldn't travel, right? So like they were probably scrambling.
But still, like there's more people they could have put here. Like they could have, like, I hate to say it, they could have put the young lion they're pushing in LA, Carl Fredrickson, in this spot. It's just weird because Yoshihashi, he's never done well. Like the 3 G1s I've watched, one he was left out of. Again, he was fighting to be in G1 and he was left out because he wasn't doing well that year. Then the year after, he won only 2 matches.
I thought this was going to be El Desperado because they've been pushing him.
They've
They've been pushing him so strongly. That's who I thought the spot was going to go. And I don't want to feel like I'm kind of disparaging Yoshihashi. He's a great wrestler. He's a great in-ring performer, but
hard worker, yeah.
When you have probably the most talented group in wrestling since like mid 80s WWF, and you're only taking the top 24, you're gonna have to pick some.
Him in another promotion would be awesome. You know,
in AEW, he would be in the TNT title picture, if not the world title picture. It's just he loves New Japan.
New Japan's so deep. I mean, there you go down even if you don't know, like me, I'm still getting familiar with everybody. But you watch these guys wrestle, and you're like, oh my, they're just so good. Right. Even the worst guy on here, well, except Jay White, but.
Yeah, he's the one for sure that, like, for me at least, he does stand out as that could have been someone else for sure.
Right.
He should be wrestling someone's backyard.
And then you have Hiroki Goto,
the X Division God. I'm sorry, the Neverweight God.
It also has 2 points. He's another member of Chaos. I would have equated him to Evil, and Shingo probably is the closest comparison. Where he's not quite Ishii, where he's like he has to be the dog that's in the fight, but he's kind of the underboss that you have to get through.
And he's won this tournament before.
Yes. And he is an Intercontinental champion. Former Intercontinental champion.
Yeah, he's held the Neverweight Open title many times, and he's traded with other Chaos members and other members. So it's weird to see him without a belt going to the G1 because he's one of the few people I've always remember seeing either having. Oh, he is part of the Never. He does have a belt.
Yeah, he's part of the
Neverweight
the 6-man tag, which is a serious belt in New Japan.
Yes.
It sounds like a joke belt having a 6-man tag belt, but it's every belt in New Japan is treated with reverence.
Yes. I watched 3-man tag in other organizations. It's a joke. Mm-hmm. You watch these guys and their tags, everything is really crisp. That's what I really like about it is they take it seriously. It's not like, like the gimmick matches, like of over here in America, that you can watch a 6-man tag or whatever, and it looks good. That's the one thing that I'm surprised, man. The more I watch, of New Japan, the more serious I start taking wrestling. And now when I watch other stuff, I'm just like, oh God, I'll just spend my time over here watching. In my spare time, I don't got too much time, but I'd rather watch New Japan.
And just kind of going back to what we were saying earlier, if you go back to Wrestle Kingdom, and I had to look up that it was 2 years ago, Goto had a hair versus hair match with Minoru Suzuki, which is that's always kind of the big comedy spot in America. Everybody remembers Kurt Angle getting his head shaved by Edge, or Molly Holly having to be like tied to the chair to have her. It's this thing. But that match at their WrestleMania was treated so seriously, and it gave Suzuki like this new darker edge when he lost, and it's just treated. And I don't want to say that New Japan isn't fun, but it's like every match has stakes.
Yeah, and this further solidified Goto at that time because it's been a while since he won the G1, as well as he's just been holding the neverweight title. And with people, you would think this is his glass ceiling. Like he won the G1, that's it. He'll just be this glass ceiling that everyone else has to break through to get through. And that's how I see him now. It's not to put him down, but if you can beat Goto and beat him for a title, that does mean something for sure nowadays. Because Shingo's first singles title, he beat Goto.
Yeah,
or the neverweight.
He feels a lot like Kevin Owens to me,
yes,
where you
like
put
that.
them in a feud to see how they fare, to see if they can handle the bigger things.
New Japan still, like, you can watch it and you still go, oh, you get the same screams, you get everything. It's just a different type of excitement, watching good moves.
And then we have someone who we have purposely not talked about to now because all of us have very strong feelings about him, which is Sonata. He's known as the cold skull of New Japan. He's the epitome of everybody wants him to be put over, but New Japan keeps saying not yet, and it's getting people like ravenous for him. I mean, if you look at it, he came to TNA for, was it a month or 2 months?
It was a while because he was with James Storm for a while.
And
sure.
yeah, and they gave him the X Division championship. This guy that they knew wasn't going to be a long-term prospect, but he's so over, and he's in so many storylines right now. He was in a long-standing kind of world's greatest tag team thing with Evil when he turned on LIJ. He has kind of always been the backup for Naito in LIJ, trying to support them, trying to do everything that's right. And then there was a thing after Wrestle Kingdom. Every member of LIJ held a title except for Sonata.
Yes.
Every single one. And Sonata lost his title match at Wrestle Kingdom. But he's so over. He's so fun to watch. And again, this year they started off where it was a tease. They started him off in the block, losing to Goto, the first night he lost to Yano by being respectful.
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know, Sonata has this thing that it's a comedy but also awesome thing where it's called the paradox lock, where he essentially locks the guy in a hold where he's not holding them, but they can't move.
It's so awesome seeing him wrap him up like a present.
And he did that to Yano outside the ring, and then started to go inside the ring to win by countout, and then felt bad.
Oh, no. So what happened, actually, is that a young lion came and flipped over Yano, and Sonata came out and, like, talked to young lion because, like, Sonata's always lost to Yano. I think he lost the last 3 years.
It's an ongoing joke,
that
Yano's the reason that Sonata never makes it to the finals.
Yeah. So as the young lion flipped Yano over to get out, while he was talking to the young lion asking what he was doing, that's when Yano taped him to the young lion he was talking to. And the funny thing is, like, through the whole match, Sonata literally took every piece of tape away from Yano. Like, it was a story. He had tape before the match, the ref found it. Then in a lockup, while he had Yano's waist, he felt the tape in his waist, and the referee asked the referee to check it. So, like, Sonata took it seriously. He did not want to lose to Yano again, but of course he did lose. But it was just really odd because we talked about it. It was like the best way for Sonata to get started in this G1, and oddly enough, is to beat Yano. Right? And he didn't.
and he lost to Yano the first night, lost to Gato. He's Yoshihashi's only loss. But then this week, he beat Naito, the current reigning heavyweight and intercontinental champion, who hadn't lost in the tournament yet, who was looking dominant, just was destroyed Tanahashi, beat Gato, beat Zack Sabre Jr. It was an incredible match, and Sonata won. It was, and to me, this is why you have to watch every night of the G1, is that nothing is for granted. And also to kind of highlight it a little bit more, the last match, and again, these are always subject to change, but the last match of the last night of the G1 is Sonata versus Evil.
Former tag team
partners.
partners.
His long-term tag team partner that that everyone thought was that they were kind of the best buddies, and then it's the Marty Jannetty through the glass moment, but Evil never confronted Sonata. Sonata's never had that moment to confront him, and
Nor did Sonata ever go after Evil, because
Right.
it was he went after the Evil went to Naito, and right after that it was why do I forget his name? Who went after Evil after Naito? The junior.
Bushi, it was Hiroshi.
And it was really odd because he went from Naito to Hiroshi back to Naito, and there was no sign of Sonata anywhere. And he had matches.
Yeah, he was there on the same card, but it's like they're purposely playing the card of Sonata is so hurt by this betrayal that he doesn't want to believe it, and that match it's if you are looking to get a New Japan and you can't watch old matches, because some people, they're like, if the ending's spoiled, I don't want to see it. This is a match to get into.
Yes.
It's going to have so much story. They're going to have an incredible video to play up for it, and it's going to be
I think
amazing.
it's going to be a lot of drama. I can almost see them like standing face to face in the ring, and Evil slapping his face, and then Sonata just going off or something. You know.
I want to wait for predictions before we get to that part, because like
He's
we're
awesome.
so close to doing that, but for
He's-
Sonata, like I really like Sonata. There's many times where I thought he should have been able to beat Okada for the title, and they didn't. And he's always been chasing a title, and the only title he's been ever able to hold was the tag team title with Evil, and it's really weird. We're at this moment now. It's like, all right, can he do it? Can he get past the tag team hump he's been part of for so long? Because Evil has held the Neverweight title while he was part of LIJ and being tag team champions with Sonata, but Sonata's never gotten to the point where being able to also contend for the title but win the title. And he's the only one of the few members of LIJ who wasn't never a double champion.
And to buy into this drama and why New Japan is such a good product, Sonata is in the dead bottom of his block right now.
Yes.
And there's this story. But I want to get to you. So let's kind of piecewise it.
Just one last thing.
Go ahead.
He has an awesome entrance.
Yes.
Awesome costume. Just he's the total package. He's just got to win now, and he's awesome. If you guys want to see awesome, LIJ, every faction is awesome. They're just fun to watch. I love everything about them. So you guys need to watch his stuff.
So let's go to you guys. So let's kind of piecewise it. When it comes to Block A, so again, how it works is each block, for those of you who haven't watched the G1 before, each block has a winner, and then the winners face off with whoever wins that match getting a contract to challenge for the title of their choosing at Wrestle Kingdom. So when it comes to Block A, who are you guys picking?
Ospreay.
Ooh. I want to pick Minoru, but we've never seen a never openweight champion win this. So I'm gonna go on a long shot and say, well, not a long shot. I think we get a back-to-back winner in Kota Ibushi.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be 100% with you guys. I have changed my prediction on this one throughout the night about 6 times between 3 people. And all of them, I'll give you my reasoning behind all of them.
No problem.
I started thinking that was Will Ospreay, thinking that this is finally his year, but I think you have to give him another year as a heavyweight before he's ready. They thought it was Kota Ibushi, because he could be a back-to-back holder of the briefcase. It would be such a good story.
Yeah.
But I think his Wrestle Kingdom story is already ready. I think it's going to be him versus Tanahashi in a respect match.
Oh, the Golden Star versus the 1 on 100. Okay, that's kinda cool.
I think that's why I'm not picking Ibushi. I think it's Okada. I think it's Okada because New Japan Wrestling has some of the most eyes on it right now. They know that they're going to have a lot of eyes on the final, and they're going to put in the person who can put the best show on in the ring.
Yeah, you got everyone at home. Yeah,
they want to highlight him, and I think they're going to toy with it. I think the kind of defining match is going to be him versus Ospreay, where Ospreay's going to get very close. He's going to hit him with everything, and then it's going to take like 6 Rainmakers to put Ospreay down. But I have Okada. And when it comes to Block B, who do you guys have?
Oh man! Well,
Block B. So
Who's gonna
Block
start?
B is stacked.
start?
I changed like 3 times.
Block B
Also-
is very stacked.
Go ahead, Keith.
Okay, I'll start. So, I hate to say the winner for Block B will be this person, but it has to be Evil. I fully believe that Evil will get beat Naito when they face each other. Then the last night on the last night of the G1, when he faces Sonata, Evil will cheat to beat Sonata for that title and for that opportunity to be in the final. And that's gonna hurt like me to watch because I don't want to see Evil win. But you can't just make him champion, take the title off him, then just move off him, period. If you want, for me and how I see it is, if you want a head of Bullet Club and you want to have him to be respectable and be someone that you've built for so long, let it be Evil. Let it be Evil. Let it be Evil who puts the flag of the Bullet Club down on that last night and say, I'm coming for you again, Naito, and this time I'm making sure you are not coming back. And anyone else that comes after me for LIJ, I'll make sure they end up like Haramu. Well, I hurt them, I'll hurt Shingo, I'll hurt Sonata, and hopefully the last person he faces is Sonata, and that'll be going to Dominion. But yeah, I have Evil, and respectively, he might only lose 1 match.
Gotcha.
Go ahead, Craig.
I'm sticking with the person I picked before this started. I think it's Sonata's time. I don't think he drops a match the rest of the G1. I think I do think you're right, Keish. I think everything comes down to that match with him and Evil. They'll set it up that they'll be tied going into that match, but no one can touch them. And I think it's time. They finally have the story for him. They finally have the fan support. They have everything. If you don't pull the trigger on him now, it's an if now win moment for him. That's how I feel about Sonata, and I think that they played with our hearts enough, having him drop the 3 matches early. I think it has to be Sonata.
See, you guys changed my mind as we've been talking and stuff because I haven't been in the loop with a lot of the storylines and stuff, but as you guys have discussed it, and I'm like, okay, and then you guys brought up just a minute ago Tanahashi. I'm like, oh my god, I had to flip flop, and I said Sonata because for the same reason that I'm like, you dangle the carrot in front of this guy all the time, and I just think that they started him out with those zeros, and I just think he's going to come out strong and just win.
And it's not just dangling the carrot in front of Sonata. It's that he has so much support now that it's dangling the carrot in front of fans.
Yeah, everyone's waiting for it. Like, yeah.
And then overall winners, who do you have, Keish?
So I said, hold on, go back to the block
Yep.
So I had Kota versus Evil.
Mm-hmm.
Evil's winning that. It's rare to see Kota winning back to back or anyone winning back to back G1s. Like I said, the best way to fully reform Bullet Club with a person from the home country and solidify like you are the head leader is for Evil to win the G1.
It's Jay White.
Jay
White has dropped that.
Yeah, to win the G1, not only have more points and have more points than Kenta and Jay White, period. Then there's no discussion anymore.
Right.
Then you re-solidify the Bullet Club as the entity, because right now it's just a bunch of random dudes.
Yeah, you have it's worse than the NWO Wolfpack because they have like Kevin Nash hasn't split away. Kenta's still in the group, but voicing his displeasure, and Evil's voicing his displeasure, and Jay White isn't a good enough talker to make us believe that he can be the leader.
And we're talking about these three guys, where these three guys are not even the long-standing members of the Bullet Club. What about GOD? What about Chase Owens? What about, even Takahashi? Is like, so where do they all stand in here? So for me, the G1 is meant to reform Bullet Club as the entity that they can build upon again.
Right.
No.
I think Sonata is going to win it all. And I think, I have Ospreay in Block A, but after also hearing you guys, it
would be
a great matchup.
But I have a feeling that it's just going to be Sonata. I think he's just ready, and like I said, he's got the thing that Saber dude doesn't have. It's just like
the charisma.
He does have the presence.
Yeah, the presence. He just shows up in that mask and that entrance, and then he's a good wrestler too. So I just think they're gonna put him.
I think it's Sonata too. I also think that you have to have Sonata beat Okada here. I think that sometime before Christmas in some match, you have to have. So I think you have to have Tanahashi have a resurgence in this tournament, and then have him come for the briefcase, and Sonata put down Tanahashi, and then you have to have Sonata beat Naito at Wrestle Kingdom to solidify it, because then he's gone through all four of the big names. He would have gone through Evil in the finals of his block.
Yep.
Okada to win the G1. Then Tanahashi
for the right to
defend the briefcase, because Tanahashi kind of has this air that he can challenge for anything whenever he wants, and then finally beat Naito, and it would be this. It would almost be a Daniel Bryant moment. I don't want to say it can't be that big because the pandemic, we won't have the crowds that we will.
Well, you might for Japan, because they've been having crowds as of right now. Will they be cheering and all that stuff? Maybe not.
Right. But I think
a clap.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be this huge long title reign. You can have Okada or Naito or Tanahashi. You can have Takahashi beat him. You can have Will Ospreay beat him. But now's the time for me to give him the belt at Wrestle Kingdom.
That's what I saw at Wrestle Kingdom. Him and Naito. I just think when I picked him, I was thinking that they would meet in Wrestle Kingdom, but you never know. He could get the belt, and it just could be. It just works out so good that they keep him there for a little extended, an extended time. Yeah, but you got Okada out there too.
So to go from there, like with Sonata winning, and this is where I have a tough time hearing Sonata win, is because I don't think Sonata will go after both belts.
But see. So
that's the thing. That's the reason why I can't see that.
Here's kind of a problem.
Yeah.
In New Japan right now is that both top titles are unified. Naito has the current World Championship and IC Championship. I see Sonata as the way of dividing it, because I see him saying, "I'm not challenging for the IC Championship. It's my turn to be the World Champion. I don't care about that belt. I'm coming for the World Championship." Then if he wins, then it gives Naito such a storyline where he only has the championship that he hated and then loved, but now it's like this backup championship. And somebody who was in his faction, who was his underling, is the one who's the world champion, and it could go through this dark place. You can have Okada has such a thing where it was somebody who was essentially a young lion when he was coming up is the world champion. You have the Haramu, I think Hiroshi and Kota can go well into next summer, especially if you have one of them turn heel. That could be a year-long feud. And then even if you have Sonata hold the belt for a year, you have Evil win next year, and then you have the rematch for the world title between Bullet Club and LIJ. And that's what's amazing about New Japan is that all of these are long-term booking decisions that make sense.
Yeah. And they don't, and what I've noticed is even though they may have plans, they go with the flow. They're not like stubborn. They're not going to be like, this is what I want and it has to be. Nope.
If it isn't working.
Yeah. Do you think
you saw what wasn't working before with Jay White? They had to take that
They
off.
pulled Jay White.
Will be 2 nights also? Wrestle Kingdom?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's another thing, the 2 nights of wrestling.
And online, a lot of the talk that I've heard is the argument too that Wrestle Kingdom is going to be their big coming out party because of the pandemic. So a lot of people are predicting that Okada wins, so we have Naito Okada again because that's the money match. That's the Austin Rock match that's going to put butts in the seat. But I think that if Sonata goes for the world title, you can still have that match as the IC championship match as the main event of night 1. And you can still have so night 1 can be, okay, here's for the new people.
Okay.
Here's the things to bring you in. Look, here's the greatest wrestler in the world, the most popular wrestler in the world. You can see them have another great match. And then night 2 is for the long-term fans. We're finally giving you Sonata in a main event role.
I'm just having a tough time. I want to see Sonata win that World Heavyweight Championship too. I just having a tough time to see where Naito either drops the ITC belt or even keeps that belt only and not have the World Championship belt. Where when it comes to Evil, he'll just take both and discard one of them to Jay White or to Kenta and be like, you two fight for this title. And then from there, we're the 2 leaders of the World Cup. That's it. Right. There's no more. So that's where my thought process is with Evil winning this and taking the titles off of Night. So.
Right.
Yeah, man. I don't know. Everything's interesting. No matter what, whether I think this, it all sounds awesome. Whether Evil wins or Sonata, everything about New Japan's awesome. And it's an awesome deal because it's only $10, and you get all the pay-per-views a month, whereas other places you got to pay for everything. It's
if you're worried about like English commentary, they do English commentary a few days after the Japanese live airing, as well as they're building up the LA Dojo. So instead of going to YouTube and watching the LA Dojo stuff, you can actually watch it on New Japan Wrestling.
And also at Wrestle Kingdom, they do have the English commentators live now.
Yes. Sometimes it's funner just to listen to Japanese commentators.
I mean, yeah, the Japanese. So just a quick segue. The main Japanese commentator, his big thing this year was that when Evil started showing kind of signs of turning heel, he was the one guy who was out there saying, no, he's doing this for LIJ, he's doing this for the people. He supported him and defended it. Even when he was with the Bullet Club, he still defended Evil. And then in his match with Naito, Evil pulled him over the table and shot him into the guardrail. And it's one of those things where it's like, even like Michael Cole wouldn't do that.
No.
Like you can't like Shivani wouldn't do that. Like it's just that much passion that's in it from the announcers and how much they play into it. It's and I mean red shoes.
That'd be just, it would be like if Bayley like went heel on her like mini me from NXT. Like that was the significance of Evil turning on his biggest supporter on the commentary, because every entrance the commentator had the spinning fan that said Evil and the scythe every time, closing the eyes, thinking and like mumbling like he's saying a prayer for him and hoping. And it's just like, it was the most shocking thing where it's just like he just like almost shot through him through the guardrail. And every time Togi or Evil get near him, they just like mock him for believing in him. Yep. It's just the most hilarious thing. So it's really cool. Like when they turned Evil heel, they made him completely. There is no way you should like this man.
the G1 is just beautiful this year. I counted, and I can make cases for 5 people in either block winning their blocks. So that's 10 potential winners.
Oh, actually, let's do that then. Who's like who's
for
the
me,
underdog? Who's the underdog for block A
so for me the 5 in block A are I think Taichi always has a chance, just because he's so over with the fans. Even though he's a heel, he's so over. Ospreay always has a chance. Minoru has a chance. Kota has a chance, and Okada has a chance. Everybody else could surprise me, but those are the 5 I have from block A as possibilities.
The only underdog I can see in block A is Jay White, and that's it. If anyone else is gonna win block A, other than Bushi or Okada, it is Jay White, and they push him for God knows whatever reasons. But
so what scares me is that Jay White has already had his Okada match, and he already has a Bushi match, and he's won both. So like the matches he has left are Jeff Cobb, Ishii, Minoru, Taichi, and Takahashi. So that's. But that almost works for him, where it's like the evil guy has the easiest road, and then like Okada has to come from behind. Okada's 2 points behind him. Ibushi has to hold out because he's already lost the head-to-head against him. So yeah, do you have any others that you think, Nelson?
Oh man, I
hate
Jay White. I think he. There's only
he has a chance, but I don't want to believe it.
I think Ibushi, Okada, or Ospreay. That's like my 3 that I think. Out of those, I think Jay White did good, but God, I don't
he's
even
the
want
only one. It's like you don't want to hear that he could win, right. But to my knowledge, to my heart, you got Bushi, you got 60, then you got Jay White at 30.
Yeah, right. And then B block. Naito, just like they're almost never going to have the champion win this because it creates such a booking hole.
Yes.
Like even if a face wins it, why wouldn't you pick Yano? Like
it's like having the champion in the Royal Rumble winning the Royal Rumble.
Right. Like why would you pick Yano? And of course Otis won Money in the Bank. So what am I saying? So he always has a chance. I have Kenta as my dark horse.
That's what I was thinking.
I think Kenta has a chance just because of the end of Wrestle Kingdom this year.
So this is funny. So, though I hate the man tremendously, he's done so much since Moxley has came back. So my dark horse for B block is Juice Robinson.
Yeah, I knew it. I could see it in your eyes.
Yeah, I was fully disappointed thinking that, but Kenta has a briefcase already for Moxley's title, right? We all believe Evil or Sonata is going to win this. They're like the 99%, right? The 1% for sure. If I have to get anybody, it has to be Juice. They have to pay him forward for everything he has done because he's done so much. He's been such a good soldier.
But where can you ever picture booking Juice over Okada or Ibushi?
Well,
like, in what world?
He can win the block. He ain't win the whole thing.
But
hey, if they push Jay White, anything's possible.
Right. They also and I also have Tanahashi because Tanahashi you can't rule out at any time for any. And I mean, there's always the chance that they could pull the trigger on Ibushi Tanahashi now, and whoever wins, the other one beats Naito say they beat Naito for the IC belt. And they're like, no, I'm so upset that I'm coming for you for the IC belt. Then you can still have Okada Naito as the main event. I think Okada Naito is happening in some form at Wrestle Kingdom.
See, I had Tanahashi, and then when I heard you guys talking about potential matchups, that's when I switched to Sonata. Mm-hmm. But I think that for me, would be like him and Kenta would be the ones.
Oh, Kenta.
Hey, we should introduce our 4th co-host.
Yes, so we have the Bullet Dog.
So I don't think we're like abusing Keisho here, like pinching him every time we don't agree.
I had to say Evil and Juice Robinson. That hurt me enough.
You started dry heaving a little when you said that.
No, we have Raymond the Bullet Dachshund.
Oh yeah,
running around. But yeah, so that's kind of an introduction to the podcast. I think that's going to be a little bit of the format every time, as we talk a little bit about the history of New Japan for people to try to get them involved, try to get them interested in it and coming in, and then probably half where we talk about kind of the current events, which right now the G1 is kind of where everything is focused.
And I'm less than a year into watching it, so every time I'll watch it on demand or something, because the matches are come out late a lot of times, you see something awesome. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you ever thought about like getting back into wrestling, but you don't want to watch WWE because of the show, you need to watch New Japan. It will change you.
Right.
It really got me back into watching wrestling, and AEW and Ring of Honor and the other ones, and you appreciate now you appreciate wrestling more because you see good wrestling. That's why I quit watching wrestling, because it was just a clown show. If whoever listens to this, you go watch some New Japan, you would not regret it.
Right.
It's awesome.
Yeah, for the 2 hours per night. No, well, it's not every night. So it's like back-to-back nights and a few days off. But it's 2 hours, and that's one of the great, thankful things we have, because G1's nights usually last 4 hours. There's an undercard, Young Lions an undercard, then the G1 Climax. They're just skipping the undercard. You have a Young Lions match, and you go straight into the G1. So those 2 hours you watch, just the matches are they're so good just for being back-to-back nights. I've stayed up to watch 2 nights. I can't do that for all the nights, but it's wonderful. Like being able to go back and watch it either with English commentary or the Japanese commentary. You can tell like they're working their butt off, and having a crowd in the audience clapping is such a relieving sight for me as a wrestling fan, to know that there are some people still wanting to watch wrestling. It's not TV screens, it's not friends and family, it's not developmental people. That's why I love with New Japan. When they had the arena empty, they had the arena empty. There was no extras, there was no skeleton crew. They made it just about the wrestlers in the ring, and that made it shows that when it comes down to wrestling in New Japan, it's about the wrestling part.
And if you're looking for a match to get in, night 18, so the last night of this block, is the main event. As of right now, again, everything's always subject to change, is Sonata versus Evil. And if you tune in a little bit early, you'll get to see Naito and his entrance, who's kind of, again, the biggest face of wrestling. So you'll get to see that as well. But if you're looking for a match to get in, that is... They
got some cool merch, too.
Yeah.
Like all their stuff they wear. For me, the going to the New Japan match in San Jose, I thought it was going to be like WWE. And it was just like everyone's sitting there enjoying the match. No one's blocking you. It was like even the American crowd was like respectful towards the matches. Remember, we were waiting out in line, and it was a real messed up thing, and we're like, oh my god. Remember, no one was getting in line.
And it was
as soon as we get in there, everyone's sitting and reacting. It was really good.
We were maybe 10 feet away from Naito at one point.
Yes. And it was an interesting like thought process, like going through that night and getting ready for the G1. I mean, the guys G1 for the event for the New Japan.
It was.
What's this, guys?
The rainmaking.
I got a rainmaker. We're shooting Okada dollars on everybody at the match. Awesome. But the only complaint I had about that night is they gave me this gun so we could make it rain, and no batteries.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And Lance Archer.
Oh, Lance Archer. Oh, he was horrible.
But even to, and not to get too far off track, but that night, like Lance Archer was still had such a crowd moment, because like literally he interacted with the fans. Like there was a fan maybe like 3 rows away from us that kept calling him Tramp Stamp, and if you know Lance Archer, that's why it's hilarious.
Yes.
And Archer's like interacting with him, and it's the best of like 80s, 90s, and 2000 wrestling in one.
And that giant of a man did a backflip off the top rope. Even the guy that like I don't remember, like he was awesome. Everything about New Japan minus Jay White, guys. Tune in.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, if you're trying to watch, like, if you search on YouTube for a match and you accidentally get Jay White, just skip that one and find one.
Oh, to make it easiest to understand what Jay White is, he can make, for any 20-minute Jay White match, you get a 10-minute match.
Yeah.
That's it. Just think of it that way. For the first 10 minutes, you get 7.
I have
seven.
I
Okay.
have Jay White's intro music.
Yo.
Watch.
Literally, yeah. He spends the first half of the match like outside the ring, and then about like 3 minutes during the
And it's the same match, no matter who he faces.
Just say no to Jay
Okada
White.
tried his darndest.
Okada, he needed you got to get like a Nobel Peace Prize or something for because working with that guy, he was like potpourri for garbage.
But just a quick preview for next time. I'm gonna probably talk a little bit about strong style wrestling, and why that's so important for New Japan. Again, because Shinsuke's what got me into New Japan, and what has kind of reinvigorated a lot of American wrestling. I'll kind of cover that a little bit next time for those of you who are newer to New Japan.
For me, I'm one of those few Americans that still finds WWE fond. I'm still fond of it. So next time we do talk about the wrestling, hopefully I'll be up to date with the WWE stuff. I'm loving Roman's heel turn. I want to see if Sasha and Bayley feud goes somewhere, and with the title and with the draft that's coming up in a few weeks, or actually next week, hopefully the landscape of the WWE is better for the fans who are watching.
American wrestling, I'm a fan of AEW's tag team division. Looks awesome. It looks like because WWE has no tag teams worth watching.
Yes, I agree.
I think AEW is starting to build up their tag team division, and it's starting to look good with FTR and I don't get the Dark Order until when Brody came in. Yeah, but before that they were garbage. But I'm starting to like what they're doing with just doing factions and having tag teams. So I keep a little up to date because I like tag team wrestling, and I like I do love the women's division in WWE. It's awesome. I like that. It's much better than the males.
But if you guys want my opinion on current WWE versus New Japan, you can look up what Hulk Hogan said during his feud with Antonio Inoki.
Oh, God.
After WrestleMania 9. So I'll give you guys a little bit of homework for that one.
Just if you guys are wondering, Keish is wearing a luchador mask and a cape.
And no pants.
And when he no pants, and when he walked in the room, sorry, I have a little sound machine.
We're confusing people because I'm supposed to look like Gato, but I have a mask on.
Hey,
what's going on?
You never. Oh well, you got to walk to the ring.
Oh,
you can come out with a Bushi mask, and nobody from LIJ would argue with you.
We could also call this educating Nelson about New Japan. But yeah, this is awesome, man. I love it. I'm so glad that you guys said, "Hey, you want to go watch New Japan Wrestling?" I'm like, "What's that?" And you're like, "It's going to be wrestling in San Jose." And then I'm like, and then you said, "You ever heard of Liger?" I go, "Yeah, my dad told."
It was
It's awesome.
his final American tour.
Yep, that's awesome. His second to the last match, and yeah, you guys need to watch.
Yeah,
I don't know. Well, fellas, what are we gonna do now? Take Raymond and wrestle?
I thought we were gonna make out.
And wrestle.
No, hold on. This is gonna be Keish later when he. Oh yeah! All right, guys.